In this video, we're going to talk about whether this G9 Mark II is actually useful for me or not. And I want to give you 5 reasons why G9 Mark II is not the perfect camera for traveling as a hybrid filmmaker and a photographer. Number 1 reason, they don't have a dedicated settings for photo and video menu. This is very important for a hybrid shooter because if you set up something so that you can take an actual photo and you want to change back to video, I want video setting to be separate compared to the photos. This camera doesn't allow me to save separate settings, and so this is one big reason why I'm not happy with my G9 Mark II. The second reason why I think G9 Mark II is not the right camera for run and gun shooters is because of the very poor auto white balance shift. Auto white balance shift in this camera is insanely inaccurate, that it shifts from warm to cool colors very fast, and it's so annoying in many situations where you want to film a proper sequence. Number 3. So the SD cards in G9 Mark II are both UHS-2 SD cards, but these are both just SD cards, which mean that they cannot go beyond 250 gigabyte. The bitrate that gives the higher quality in this camera is 600 megabits per second, which means I have no choice but to use the SSD card. And also there's a tendency of filling up these UHS-2 SD cards very fast. So I have to invest in like $300 something for UHS-2 SD cards to get the highest memory, but still it's not sufficient, because if this were to be CF Express Type B cards, then they have the memory up to TBs, which means that gives me more convenience to not change the memory cards while in some travel like this. If I'm going to record to the SSD card, then I will have to have a setup like this. If you notice, I'll have to put the SSD card on top of the camera, and then I'll have to connect this SSD into the ports, which brings to 2 other issues. First is that we lose the weather sealing capability of G9 Mark II, which means like when I'm opening the port, it's no more weather sealed. And it's also more inconvenient to carry something external because it's not compact anymore. The second part to it is point number 4. When I'm using this SSD card to record the media from G9 Mark II, it is extremely slow to start up to record. So I can actually demonstrate it to you. Right now the camera is sleeping, because if I turn on the camera from off, it's gonna take a lot of time to turn on the camera. So I just put it in sleep. But you can see how it behaves. I'm just pressing it to wake it up. Now you can see I'm hitting the record button. Is it recording? No. I'm gonna press it again. So this is the minimum amount of time it requires for my camera to start to record after waking up. These are all the issues that I'm facing to not allow me to instantly record what I want to record at site when traveling. Inconvenience to the core. Point number 5 is accumulation of all other points that I mentioned in my previous video, and a newer inconvenience I noticed just now. The battery drain. So this camera drains battery more than my other cameras. Why? Because I had to put this camera in the sleep mode for most of the time, and also I have to record it through the SSD. So it's like the byproduct, it's a side effect from my previous points. This is again an inconvenience that you need to change the battery often. Now, I want to mention a few other points that I mentioned in my previous video. That is, the battery door is absolutely finicky. This has loosened up quite a bit, and I wish they had the battery lock as they have it in GH6. That would be more convenient. This is a pro level camera, and that would be expected of any pro level cameras. And this is supposed to be the best travel camera ever made. But no, not yet. It's still there. GH6 is a much better body compared to G9 Mark II. So I want to conclude this video on a positive note. Even though there are at least 5 annoyances with this G9 Mark II camera, I think this is one of the best cameras ever made. The reason being the camera system itself. The Micro Four Thirds camera allows me to pack in such tiny lenses even in my pocket. This is a 12 to 60 millimeter lens, which is equivalent of 24 to 120 mm full frame equivalent, which I can just pack it in the pocket. I don't need to carry a bag. This is allowing me to travel light and be more flexible at the moment. This, as a travel camera, could be much better, but it's not yet.